सपनों का जहां, यहाँ वहाँ, हाँ जी हाँ, हम तो खोजते रहे अपने मकान, यहाँ वहाँ, हाँ जी हाँ। कुकुड़ुकुड़ुकु, कुकू, कुकुड़ुकुड़ुकु, कुकू, कुकुड़ुकुड़ु, कुकुड़ुकु, कुकुड़ुकुड़ुकु, कुकू, कुकुड़ुकुड़ुकु, कुकू, कुकुड़ुकुड़ु, कुकुड़ुकु।
Okay, so hi children, welcome back to another and super fun and amazing session of the Kukuruku Art Festival, that is the biggest and the longest running global art festival for children. And it is global not only because we have facilitators from 9 different countries, but also because we have viewers and listeners from Oman, Qatar, and UAE. And we are so honored to welcome our audience from the Middle East. So, yeah, that's super fun and amazing. Okay, so this session is brought to you by Camel, India's favorite stationery brand, in association with our radio partner 92.7 Big FM Dhun, Badal Ke Do Dekho, and our publication partner Sonalika Publication, that says nurturing thinking minds and shaping a better future. And of course, our entertainment partner, Pogo, children's favorite entertainment channel. So before we move over to the instructions, here is a very small and super interesting video clip for you guys. Okay, I hope you enjoy it. Moderator, can we please play the video? Okay, so children, this session is brought to you by Camel, India's favorite stationery brand. Okay, so now let us do not do any further delay and start over with the instructions. Okay, well, I am aware that you already know the instructions, but for those of you who do not know, the first is that this session will be 40 minutes long, followed by a special 20 minutes question and answer round where you can ask all of your doubts and queries, and our instructor will answer all of them for you. Okay? The second, if you have any problem with your gadgets or network connectivity or electricity or anything, okay, just consult with your parents, and I am sure that they must be more than happy to help you with it. And third, that for all those who are saying that, ma'am, I forgot to join yesterday's session or I could not attend, we got your back, children. This whole session is being recorded and will be uploaded on our website where you can go and watch all the recorded sessions over there. Okay? So let us not do any further ado and let us get started with this session. So today's session is about express. Okay, abstract abstract express by Miss Kanika. So children, a loud round of applause for our incredible instructor, please. You can send us emojis. Okay, that will be fine. So Miss Kanika, we welcome. I hope you're doing great.
Thank you, Ishika. Yes, I'm doing good. I hope all of you all are doing good too. Okay, so I am excited to start yet another session. But before we start, without wasting more time, we will quickly do a recap of what we did yesterday. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. I want all of you to participate through the chat window. And it is also for those who have joined in today and couldn't join yesterday. They can know a little bit more about what we had done yesterday and get a hang of things before they start painting with us. So I'll just share a screen. You all share what you remember from yesterday. So you all share all the keywords that you remember from yesterday. Okay, quickly in chat, I want keywords from yesterday. Express, bones, all right, yes. Nature, deform, abstract. Macro imagery, nature, flowers, distort. Lovely. You all have been very attentive, I believe. I'm so excited to see your works. I'm sure you all are doing great work painting with me. Close-up of nature, zooming in, mythical, unique, feelings. Georgia O'Keeffe, you even remember the name of the artist. Great. Okay, so warm colors, cool colors, of course. Great. So let's go on to all of these words that you've shared with me. I have also recorded them here with me. Abstract, close-up of images, nature, express, zooming in, macro image, enlarged. Some of you even said large image, zooming in of images, close-up of images. Yes, the paintings are enlarged. Georgia O'Keeffe was the artist who made paintings of nature, enlarging them into greater than life size, into a macro size. Okay. Okay, before we move on to what Georgia O'Keeffe, the kind of work she did, I'd like to tell some of you who couldn't join yesterday. So if you're joining us today and making the artwork, please remember to have watercolors with you, a pencil, of course, because you may be drawing today as well, a black pen and marker, whatever you have with you. I have a white pen too. It's in the list of materials shared with you. So you can have watercolors, a little bit water, tissue, a brush, and paper and pencil. Okay, so Georgia O'Keeffe was the artist, the American artist we spoke about yesterday, who did paintings of nature. She would enlarge macro images, photographs which were very much like close-ups of things that we aren't able to see with the naked eye. So this is what her paintings looked like. Okay, so this one on the top right is the image of a rose, the inside of a rose. So she did it in black and white. Maybe it was of a black rose, or maybe she took a photograph in black and white and then zoomed in, did a macro image of it and painted it enlarged on a canvas. This one on the corner right bottom is of the ram's head. This one I told you was the contrast presented in nature of life and death. Okay, some of you gave me very interesting answers yesterday about what this painting could mean to you. On the left, yesterday I told you this was also part of the plant. It was foliage, the way the leaves fall. But maybe the plant was red in color and we see blending of colors from one light tint to a darker shade. This one on top left is called blue and pink. This also is a close-up of a petal of a plant part inside of a plant part. So these were the 4 paintings we looked at. If you Google Georgia O'Keeffe, I'm sure you'll be able to look at many other paintings on similar lines. Okay, today's session, we do a little extra after painting. Okay, so we do a technique called mark making. Marks, you all know, when we use a pen or a pencil and do impressions, strokes, dots, lines, blobs, check pattern, all of these are kind of marks that we are able to make. Now, everything has a texture, right? You all are going to tell me what is your understanding of texture. Quickly, keywords. What is texture to you all? When we touch our hair, we feel a certain texture. We touch the clothing we wear, we have a certain texture, rough, okay, marks, okay, a design that we make, maybe a pattern that we create, rough texture, smooth texture, soft surface, pebbles, its quality and feeling of a material. Great, you all know what texture is. What do you think the texture of a flower petal would be like? What is the soft, tender, delicate, smooth, silky, lovely? These are the kind of words we describe texture with, okay, in nature or in life. Great. So these are the kind of mark making techniques we can use to add texture to anything that we draw. After your painting is complete, we are going to experiment with small strokes of lines called marks, or you can even call it impressions, that brings about the texture of that surface, okay? Whether it's leaf, whether it's hair, fur, hair, wool, okay? All of these are necessary to bring about the texture on your painting of the object you've created. So these are the marks. I'll make them with a black pen and a white pen after the painting is complete. So make sure you have that ready with you. Let's move on. So this is an example of a flower drawn basically with a pen and a pencil. And you see these small strokes and marks in the corners of the petal, the inside of the flower, the darker areas, the lighter areas. Some of the strokes are light, some are really dark. That brings about the texture of the petal. There are these small veins inside a leaf, right? There are these veins inside a petal on the back or the front of the petal. So we use these mark making technique to get the texture, to bring about the texture more evidently. Okay, you see there's some sort of a hair kind of a thing on this part of the flower that we drew yesterday. So we took example of a sunflower, the inside and the lower part of the sunflower, and we enlarged it. After enlarging, we cropped it and we used this as our inspiration for the painting. Let's paint now. So the materials, as I said during the beginning of the session, were watercolor. You can use watercolor kits or watercolor tubes. I'll be using watercolor inks. These are liquid watercolors, my Camel. A brush of number 2 or number 4 size, whichever is suitable for the page size you're using. I'm using an A4 size sheet, and black pen for your mark making texture technique. Could I request moderator to please spotlight my video where I'm creating the artwork? So what we did yesterday was we took inspiration from that macro image of the flower that we saw, and we created the green and the blue part of it. I added a bit of purple and blue by myself because I wanted to change it a little bit from the original picture. I also gave you all the choice to change the colors if you'd like. Then we did blending of the color, the lighter color into the darker color, all right? And we did wet on wet technique, which is when you make the surface of the page moist or wet, and then you add the color on top. I have liquid colors and I showed you how they spread once you put a drop on wet surface. So let's get started. I hope you have a container with a little water and your brush ready and your watercolor palette or tube or your palette open. So let's start with the second petals. We did this one yesterday, blending in the red into the orange and the yellow. We did a bit of brown in the corners. If you want to make it darker, you could do that. But you will have to use a little bit of water on top for it to be able to blend into the other colors. So I'm using a little bit of water once again on the surface. Just moist your brush, make your brush a little wet, not too wet, and add the colors. All right. So let's start with the first color, which is the yellow. I just wanted it a little bit dark, so I thought I'll give it another layer. Okay. Then take a little water, blend it. Then take orange. And let it blend into the yellow. Take water, blend it through the brown. Okay. The last color we used was brown in the corners. And maybe a little bit of red. Let's start with the second petal. You wet the surface with just a moist brush and a wet brush. Just add a little water onto the surface of the second petal. Just make sure it's not too much water and just make sure it's not too dry because your color needs to spread and be able to blend into the other color, the lighter tones. All right, the first color we did was yellow. So start from one side only. When you have the darker tone in this corner, you will start with the lighter tone in the second petal so that you're able to make out the difference between the two petals, that they are two separate parts of a flower, right? Second one, the orange blending into the red. Okay, the orange and then the red. Great. So I asked you yesterday, you could change the colors if you had a choice. So you all made a choice of changing the colors. Can you tell me what colors are your petals? I'm waiting to see your answers in chat. You may have all decided the combinations you wanted from one lighter tone into the darker, blending the colors the way Georgia O'Keeffe did. Try to use 3 different tones, maybe with a purple and a pink. You can add a little bit of blue, like orchids are blue also. So blue and purple, they have a lovely color combination. Pink, purple, blue, great. So the last layer over here is the brown. Pink, orange, purple, lovely combinations. I'm sure there's a flower that exists in these combinations because nature has so much to offer. White and blue and a bit of pink. So this is someone who likes really pastel shades. I like that. Interesting. This part of the petal is left. So I'm going to add a little bit more water and do the same kind of blending, wet on wet, the way I did for the first one. The yellow blends into the orange. Then the red and the brown in the corner. Now this is the lower part of the flower that has no light actually reaching here unless you are photographing it with contrast. So it's kind of dark in the corners. When you have to spread the color and make it blend into the other, add a little water and it will blend into the other color. So our second petal 2 is done. Let's start with the third. Okay, so you have to make the water spread evenly onto the third petal. Now I was wondering, the ones who were not present yesterday in the session, as Prachi ma'am and Ishika ma'am have informed you that you can view the recordings later and do it along with me for both the sessions. But today, maybe you can watch, and if you're able to achieve the drawing by yourself in this A4 size sheet, you're very welcome to join me and start drawing like this. Maybe coloring you are while you're watching, I'm sure you'll remember how to color. And of course, you have the recording to view and be able to color alongside. And after you finish and complete your painting, don't forget to share it with all of us. Ishika ma'am told you how you can make the artwork, the final artwork, be visible to everyone on social media. So do that. I'll be very happy to see what your final results are like. I'm sure you've done brilliantly. And I'm so excited to even view the different color combinations you've used and how you've blended 2 and 3 tones of the same color family, the warm colors or the cool colors, whatever your choice has been. I'm very excited to see that, so don't forget to share. Just stay on this session. You can learn how watercolors are used and how you can create one painting of your own. Maybe you can bring about the difference in the flower you choose. Are any of you fond of photography? You know, if you have a small garden or if you've got plants in your balcony, you can photograph them with your tablet if you have a tablet, or maybe a small camera, or even borrow a phone from your parent and ask them to support you to take macro images of nature. So if you've got plants at home, I think it will be a great idea to try and photograph close up of the house plants that you have in your balcony, in your lawn or garden, whatever you have. Or you can go out to a park and do photography there also. And maybe you find some butterflies too to photograph. Even if you're not able to go close to an insect or close to a butterfly and photograph it, you can always photograph it from, say, 2 feet away. And later on, what do? Just like what I did, I zoomed in and I cropped that image. So if you take a good picture of that insect or butterfly or the moth, whatever you're able to find, you can zoom into that picture, and later on you can use that as your inspiration to paint your own version of Georgia O'Keeffe's styled painting. Okay, so orange and red have blended together. My red is a bit like pink, so it's actually called crimson color. So I'm going to add a little bit of orange here, and then little water in this corner, and the brown in the corner again, just the way we did for the first 2 petals. This petal kind of looks incomplete, so I'm going to add a little bit of yellow in this corner too. It appear darker. All right, let's move to the 4th petal here in this corner. Okay, same technique, wet on wet. We make this petal wet with a moist brush, not too much water, not too dry a brush, just enough for us to be able to blend the paints. All right, so how many of you have hibiscus or roses in your house plants, if you've got any plants? I think interesting will be to zoom into a rose, the inside of a rose, and photograph it and use it as your inspiration for your painting. The ones who have hibiscus or the bougainvillea is also very interesting. The petals of that flower are actually like leaves, and they come in so many different colors. It'll be very interesting to paint those as well. You don't necessarily have to take only the picture of a flower. Since Georgia O'Keeffe has inspired us to create a painting inspired by her style, we can always photograph a flower and a part of a leaf together. Why not? There are ways to make a painting look more creative and different from hers, because she's inspired us and made us think of a lot more than just what we see through our photographs, right? So you need a bit of planning when you're photographing something. You need a bit of planning also, how you're going to photograph, whether you're going to photograph it in black and white, or are you going to add some changes with a filter or something to your photograph? Maybe that works too. And if you use a black and white, it'll be interesting to see different kind of flowers and foliage in black and white. Okay, similarly, like the other 3 petals, the first 3 petals that we did, we'll do the 4th one as well. So I started with a wet surface here on the petal, added the yellow to begin with. Since this petal is much, much bigger, so there'll be more surface area covering the yellow. The second color we wanted was the orange, right? See how it spreads. So don't take too long to spread it because the sheet tends to absorb the water, right? So once it absorbs the water, the color also gets absorbed in the same spot. So in order to be able to blend it, you have to ensure that you got the surface wet. Right. The third color is the red to blend it into the orange. It's kind of pink though, but that's okay. It doesn't have to be the same exactly as the picture. It's abstract, right? You don't really know if a flower like this exists in nature, but I actually strongly believe that there must be something like this. There are zillions of things in nature which are not yet discovered. So I'm sure there's a flower which looks weird, doesn't smell too good, and has these amazing colors for you to see. The last one is the brown. You want to make it darker, add some more. Don't spread it too much. If you want it darker, just let it blend into the water. Okay. Great. I'm going to do the same for these. These are pretty light, so I'm going to add a little bit more. And in the meanwhile, you all can catch up if you are left to do the previous petal. I'll just finish this one with darker tones. Little bit of red blending into the brown. So I'm just dabbing and dropping the color there to see a smooth transition from one tone into the other. Just like petals are, they are soft, right? So they must be flat. They must be smoothly blending one into the other. Great. Shall we move on to the previous second one so that you all have the time to finish up with the first 2-3 petals. The red into the brown and a little bit of orange here. If you're unable to complete with me, which I don't think will be the case because I'm kind of going very slow and giving you enough time to catch up. And watercolors are easy, you know, they quickly get absorbed. You just have to move smoothly your paint onto the sheet. So let's move on to this part now. This is also another petal. Wet on wet technique. You always can finish your work and complete it and then share it. Just watch carefully. You all are very smart. The way you've answered today and yesterday, I was so impressed. You know, some of the pictures even I couldn't guess in the beginning when I saw them. And then when I read about them and I thought it'll be a tough challenge for them to guess the picture, but you all were great. I think there's some superpower that you all have being younger, you know, being in your teenage and being a student learner. I think there's some superpower you all have. You're all more observant, which is so good. So this petal I'm doing vertically. I add the yellow towards the inside and blend the orange into it. And then the third color was the red. My red kind of looks like a pink. Don't know why though. The fourth one is the brown. And if you have to make it darker, just pick up the color if you're using liquid watercolor. But if you're using cakes, you add more drops of water onto the cakes. Pick up the color and just drop it on the wet surface like this. Dab it. And then it becomes dark enough to show you a different tone in every part of the petal. Great. Let's move on to The last 2-3 petals we are left with, same thing. Start with a wet brush, make the surface moist, not too much, and stay within the outline of that petal. I hope you all did the drawing with the pencil only and not with anything else. No markers or gel pens or sketch pens. Some of you even suggested that they'd like to use the brush pens. I'm okay with that. Right? Maybe you can try making the surface wet with gel pens. That's like an experiment. You might have to do it to see how gel pens blend with, or how the brush pens blend with the water, whether they give you a similar effect like watercolor or not. I'm sure they do. I'll also try. See, you all are, without knowing that you all have given me so many ideas that I could try myself. Brush pens with water, just to achieve a watercolor effect. Not a bad idea. All right, the last color, the red. And the brown. Okay, great. I'm so excited. I'm about to finish. I hope you all are too. So the last two, again, make the surface wet. Just enough water to help your colors blend well. Start with the yellow, the lighter tone here. Drop a bit of orange here and there, and just gently try to blend into the yellow. So the red, the third tone. And the last tone is the brown. Okay, great. Don't forget to share your completed paintings, all right? And tag Kukuduku Art Fest and Camlin and Camel. Camlin Kukuyo and Camel. All right, so you've got the last petal almost done. The yellow blends into the orange. The red and the brown. Great. So this is what your painting looks like, but it's not complete yet. As I said, that we are going to try the texture making, mark making technique. And we all saw in that example that I showed you on the slideshow PPT, where you had used different types of marks, which is dashes, impressions, lines, dots, blobs, all of that. Now I feel this part of my painting is kind of dry. This was done first, right? So your mark making will start from the lower part of the painting. But let's start doing the green and the blue parts that we painted yesterday. Now you saw the painting, remember, it had kind of hair on it, you know, in white. So we are using a black pen. If you don't have a white pen, it's fine, use a black pen. I'm using both. So let's start the mark making with the green part. So you will see that there was small, tiny hair. Now my pen is very thin. I'm going to zoom into my painting for you all to be able to see the mark making. So just give me like a few seconds. I'll just zoom into my painting for you to be able to see the pen strokes and impressions. All right. I hope you're all able to see. Shall I zoom in further? Can you let me know if you want it to be zoomed in further? Okay, I see a few yeses, so I'm going to zoom in further. Let me make a few marks on a blank sheet of paper first for you all to understand what marks would be like. Okay, so let the other part of the paintings also dry up. Since mine is dry, I'm going to put a white sheet over here and show you how. Okay, so maybe you can try a few techniques separately, but in order to be able to see the technique that I'm using right now, I'm going to make it on a blank sheet of paper. So this is suppose the leaf shape or the petal that you have created. You can have a few dots in there. Now, when you use these kind of mark making techniques where you have dots or bigger dots or smaller dots all over, it's called stippling. Okay, stippling is the technique where you use either your brush or your pen that you're using to make dots all over. So the part of the flower that has lots of dots and it turns darker, that's because that part of the flower or that part of the object that you have drawn is receiving less light. So that's when you cover it up with lots of dots. So you are able to show the light and the dark, the way you have blended one light tone into the dark tone with paints. Similarly, with stippling, you can do so. And to make the hair, you can probably do small strokes. Let me bring it even more close. So you can do small strokes like this. Impressions or strokes, whatever you want to call it, or marks, simply marks. So you can have dots and strokes in the corner, the way you have it on a cacti. Similar fashion, we are going to use this texture onto our painting. So I hope now it's clear how we are going to do. So you have this mark making technique all over, somewhere in the middle, in the corners, just randomly, and have stippling also done around the surface. So the tips and even here. Strokes all over, small dashes or impressions. Similarly on the second one, stippling and marks like this. The example that I showed you of that flower had longer lines, right, on the petals. So we are going to do the same on the petals here that we have drawn, but this green part will have this hair-like impression to give it that texture. Do the same for all the other green parts. Do stippling first. You can even increase the size of the dots. If you want it to show and give it more texture, you can do small circles and just fill in the circles to give it a different kind of texture and make it look more natural, more inspired by nature. I won't say realistic because abstract art is not necessarily realistic. It may be inspired from the real thing, but created in your own kind of way. So impressions, small strokes. Those who don't have a black pen, you may use a really thin brush and black watercolor to get small dots and strokes. But really thin brush will be, say, size 0 or size 1 round brush. But I'm sure all of you have pens at home. Yeah. Similarly, we do the same stippling in the tip and some impressions all over. It's up to you whether you want to make more impressions, you can add more. I'm adding a little. You will always have the time to spend some more time on this artwork that you're making and add some more mark making techniques here and there. Okay, so this kind of stippling and mark making technique continues in the other green parts as well. Okay, now let's start with the petal. Okay, the first petal in the darker tone areas. Shall I zoom out a little bit for you to be able to see the other petals? I'm using lines in the darker areas, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the line like I start from one point and then I do strokes like this. I don't complete the line. Do the same for the other petals. Start from one point, the darker point, and give strokes like these. Smaller, longer or shorter, and kind of fill in. You see the veins inside the leaf? Similarly, the petals also have veins. If you've done parts of a plant in your science subject, I'm sure you'll be able to recall. So do the same for the other petals. The darker corner where you have the brown and the maroon blending into the red, that's where you make these strokes, the longer strokes. So they are not short dashes or marks, they are longer strokes. Do that, and you can have one or two here around the yellow or the orange. Not too many there because they are lighter tone, right? It's only the darker tone where you need more strokes. Do the same for the other petals. I'll zoom out a little bit for you to be able to see the other petals properly. And the strokes, they come right out from this corner where your petal starts. It can go in the same direction and in the same way as you have the petals drawn. Okay, this one petal I'm doing from this corner, right? Coming from the outside towards the inside. You can do the same for the others also. Just strokes like this. They don't have to be too dark. They don't have to show like they are dark black in color. It's okay if they are kind of light and not too heavy. Because petals don't need so much black on them. It will make them really hard. So you want a soft texture. You just want to support the paint that you have used with certain lines and marks to help it look like the direction it is in. And a little bit of the soft tone and the veins come about with these marks. All right, a little bit on this corner was left. This petal is kind of big. So I'm going to use a few lines in this corner. You can darken some of the areas in the browns. Okay, similarly in the corner. Just lines, wavy lines to make it look like the petal is soft and flowy and light. The texture that is created and not touched, it is created visually, right? That visual texture is called implied texture. The thing that we create with our drawing or with our pen or mark making, it's called implied texture. Okay, so I am almost done. You all can use the same technique to finish up. Wherever you want more lines, you can do so. Darker areas. Do the same here. Stippling and mark making continues in the green areas. So this is about the artwork. I'm be using a little bit of my white pen. If you all don't have white pen, it's absolutely fine. Right. So I'm making dots with the white pen and some strokes in the petals as well. Sometimes the watercolor may take longer to dry up compared to each one of us because I have a sheet which dries up quickly. So you can wait a little for it to dry up and then add the dots all around. So give me all the keywords that now you are able to recall at the end of completing this painting. Quickly, keywords, including the ones we used yesterday and learned, and the ones that were new today. So texture is one of them. What are the other keywords you all remember from today's session? Quickly give them to me on chat. Stippling, texture. Macro, mark making. Great. Blob texture, yes. Blob can also be used. Great. So my painting is done. I hope you all will be able to use the same on your painting. Even if the colors are different, even if you choose to make different mark making, like not impressions like this, or maybe change the direction, maybe the dots are much bigger and more visible than the ones that I have done, it's absolutely fine. It's your art, okay? Be proud of it and try to experiment as much as possible with colors, with techniques, with mark making. Maybe you can do mark making with a brush and not with a pen. That's perfectly fine. Give it your own look. Your artwork should be yours. All right, so I am done with my painting. I hope you all are almost about to complete. So over to you, Ishika. I've had great response from you all. I'm so happy, and I'm definitely taking a lot that I've learned, something new from you all. Thank you, everyone.
Well, I think that we should thank you for such incredible session. And first of all, this session has been splendid, and the artwork is so cute, and children are actually very amazed. I can see they're so attentive and interactive. They have been so chatting very continuously. It was amazing. Well, thank you so much, Miss Kanika.
Thank you.
Okay, so children, before we head over to the question and answer round, our sponsors have a small video clip for you guys. Moderator? Okay, so children, I really hope that you guys enjoyed it. So this session is brought to you by Camel, India's favorite stationery brand. in association with our radio partner 92.7 Big FM Dhun Badal Ke To Dekho and our publication partner that says Nurturing Thinking Minds and Shaping a Better Future and our entertainment partner Pogo. Okay, so now we start with the questions. Okay, I'm going to read the questions that you all have posted. The first question that I see is, which pen do we need to use to draw? Which pen do we need to draw?
Okay, first of all the drawings must be done in pencil first. Yes, because you are able to erase it in case you go wrong and you want to make changes. A permanent marker is what I used, something called a CD pen, which is easily available in the market. You can buy that. Don't buy a really thick marker because too much black in your artwork may not look that great. So buy a thin marker and a permanent marker so it never blends or merges with any paint that you're using. That's one. And draw with a pencil first.
Okay, I can see Rijul Sharma really restless and he's saying that, ma'am, I do not have a white pen.
That's perfectly fine. I told you I had a white pen, so I used it. Just because I didn't want too many black dots around, so I added a bit of white because the hair in the actual picture were white. So I thought, why not have a bit of white and black both? It's up to you. You can
Okay.
use a brush and a white paint instead if you want a little white. So thin brush and white paint will do the job.
Okay, we have another question that says, is that texture called Zentangle?
Zentangles are kind of different. They are more like patterns and not texture. So patterns is continuous thing that gets repeated. Yes, this also is texture, and stippling and marks also get repeated, but Zentangles are kind of same and uniform. So that's the subtle difference, but you can always Google it and see some images of Zentangles. You will see that they are continuous patterns and they look the same. They look uniform all throughout. But marks may not be uniform. They may be thick, they may be small, they may be longer, like that.
Okay, can I use a whitener? That's a question by Ashmita.
If you really want those white dots around, you can go ahead and use whitener, because experimentation is also a technique, you know, it's something that you're willing to do something new. So you always use, but just make sure you don't spill whitener all over and just be careful. And Ishika ma'am, I'll just want to add this video that you showed us of acrylic paints. Did you see the texture was being made? I'm telling the children they can experiment with acrylic paints like that. You know,
Absolutely.
if you use a canvas, you can use all of those sponge and sticks and stuff like that to create an abstract texture on your painting. So
absolutely, children, you should go ahead and try all of these things, and do not forget to share them with us. Okay, we are super excited and we would be thrilled to see all of your artworks and amazing, very super talented little creations. Okay, so you can share them on your social media, and do not forget to tag Kukuruku and Camel, India's favorite stationery brand, and stand a chance to win exciting prizes. So I really hope that everybody likes prizes, because I do. Okay, so do not forget to do that. Okay. Okay, the getting back to the questions we have, do we use an art file or a sheet?
If you have an art file, you can use an art file because all your work gets stored in there. So you can always keep a record and you don't lose your sheets. But I like to work in sheets, and then I put my sheets in a separate file. So whatever works for you, however you organize yourself, you can use either of it.
Okay, I can see Ananya Khabra saying, can you show me the pic which inspired you to make this?
Okay, so I shared with you the picture that I used. It was of a sunflower and the bottom part of the sunflower that was photographed. I could show it to you right now, but when you are viewing the recording online, you will definitely get to see everything from yesterday's session and today's. So try and have a look at that recording once again. So you'll see everything and you'll understand probably something more and something new and something. Yeah, so she says, okay, I think.
Yeah, she says, okay, thumbs up. Okay, Kirti says, Ishika ma'am, you're the best. Thank you. And she also says, Kanika ma'am, I love your art. I attended all your abstract classes. Please tell this to her.
Okay, thank you so much. And I loved having you all. You all were so brilliant with your answers, so spontaneous. And I'm also learning something new every time I take a session with Kukuruku students. Thank you.
Okay, they say, can we use any color?
Okay, so if, like I said, if you don't have watercolors, I could see that some of you didn't have watercolors. You were wanting to use brush pens. So yes, experimentation is very welcome. I suggested that you could add wet on wet technique with brush pens. Why not? Acrylic, you've seen the video and you've seen this work that I've done. Why don't you use acrylic and go ahead and see how different a texture is? This is kind of flat, but acrylic may give you something else. So many different textures can be made with different mediums. And dry mediums like crayons. Camel has beautiful crayons that you can use in your artwork. Why not?
Okay, and we have another question. Ma'am, can you show the pic of the painting we made right now?
This is the one. It's
yeah,
right in front. You'll have to spotlight that.
yeah, it is. Yeah, it is spotlighted now. Right?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, we can see that. So I think that was it for the questions. Children, I cannot see any further questions. Okay, we have another one. Ma'am, can we use brush pens too? Please, please, please.
Yes, please go ahead and experiment. Maybe use the wet on wet technique with the brush pens. You'll get a similar effect. Try it.
And they're saying that, can we draw all of this on a piece of cloth instead of a paper?
Why not? But you will have to ensure that your cloth is stretched so it's not moving from the surface. I taped my sheet on a cutting board with sellotape in the corners. You can do the same on cloth and just make sure the colors that you're using on cloth are acrylic or fabric paints.
Okay, so yes, I think that was it for the questions, children. So I'm not able to see any further questions. So I think that was it. Well, thank you so much for that amazing session, Miss Kanika. And
Thank
also,
you.
children, you guys are amazing. You were so attentive and, answering so quickly. And you guys did a great job. Okay. And now we are super excited to see what you have made. So do not forget to share that on your social media accounts. Okay. So bye-bye. We shall see each other next week. Same timing, 3 p.m. Do not forget that. Okay. Bye-bye. Till then, have an artistic week ahead. Bye-bye.
हम तो ढूंढते रहे सपनों का जहां यहाँ वहाँ हाँ जी हाँ हम तो खोजते रहे अपने मकान यहाँ वहाँ हाँ जी हाँ कुकुड़ुकुड़ुक